One of my favorite seasonal food preparations is mushroom conserva. So this is an ancient way of preserving mushrooms that came from Spain, and it's not dissimilar to a French duxelle. So it's a way of preserving something by partially heating it in oil, and you're going to get, probably 3 to 4 months if it's kept refrigerated. And it's a wonderful way of preserving many of your favorite foods. I like to use oyster mushrooms. So this is a common oyster mushroom. We actually, if you're a mushroom forager or you're new to foraging mushrooms, this is an easy one to get right, because oyster mushrooms, they tend to come out when the weather's cooler, and they only grow on living trees for the most part. And I find them typically on oak, ash, so things from that family, from the Fagaceae family. And in many forests, you'll find them quite abundantly. We're starting with 5 pounds. And what we're gonna do is, with the small mushrooms, we're just gonna peel them off, throw them into our bowl here. Noah's working with some of the larger clumps right now. So we're gonna basically separate them into these smaller little chunks. And some of the larger mushrooms, I like to just tear them in half. So we're making these long, almost like ribbons of oyster mushrooms. This preparation is also great with chanterelles, like any kind of woody, earthy mushroom that's got a lot of flavor to it. And you'll be surprised at how well the texture of the mushroom holds up in this preparation. So it's almost like having these flavorful, fresh mushrooms for months to come. We have all of our ingredients composed now for our mushroom conserva, and this is kind of my adaptation of this recipe. So I've added a number of things to it, and so I think the way you should view this recipe is one that affords you a tremendous degree of flexibility. A recipe is basically just a roadmap, and so find the flavors that you love and then integrate them into what you want to make. So we've got our 4 pounds of oyster mushrooms, which we've kind of shredded up, broken up the ones that were quite large. And so we've got 1 cup of oil per pound of mushrooms. So we have 4 cups of extra virgin olive oil here. Got about a tablespoon of salt, 2 teaspoons of paprika. I love adding pink peppercorns. If you don't like pink peppercorns, leave them out. So about 2 tablespoons of pink peppercorns. We have 8 cloves of garlic. There are no recipes that I've seen that add garlic, but trust me, when you make this recipe, the garlic is awesome. I have 4 sprigs of rosemary. I've got 4 or 5 whole sprigs of thyme that we're gonna add, and then about 5 bay leaves. We have red wine vinegar. There's about 1/3 cup of that, and then 1/4 cup of balsamic. The balsamic is another addition that I love because it tastes so good with this recipe. So what we're gonna start with is we're gonna add the oil to our stock pot, and when the oil reaches 170 degrees, we're then gonna add our mushrooms. So as our oil is warming, we're gonna go and start adding some of our aromatics. So we start extracting some of the oils out of our herbs and spices. So we're gonna go ahead and add our pink peppercorns in here. So we have our bay leaves, thyme, rosemary. This is all of our garlic. We're barely cooking. You're just above the pasteurization point. So the oil creates a nearly oxygen-free environment, and that's a very important means of preservation. So without oxygen, it's difficult for many other organisms that would ordinarily be breaking these things down, causing them to spoil, to thrive. And so it's the combination of temperatures above 165 degrees, so we're shooting for 170 here, and the anaerobic environment of oil that allows this preservation technique to work. So our oil and our herb and spice blend now is at 170 degrees. So we're gonna go ahead and add our mushrooms. It's gonna seem like there's not enough oil for this to work, but trust me, there's a lot of water in mushrooms. And once the temperature starts working on these, it's actually gonna break down nicely. So our goal at this point is to bring this whole solution back up to 170 degrees. You want to measure the temperature of the oil, not the temperature of the mushrooms. Keep it on like a medium heat. We're not trying to do this too quickly. We're just gonna cook some of the water out of the mushrooms, get everything above that pasteurization point. That's how we know that these are gonna be able to live in our jar for a couple of months, safe and sound. All right, so we've brought our mushroom conserva up to 170 degrees. We've rested it here for about 5 minutes. Now we're going to add our red wine vinegar and balsamic vinegar to this. That's going to give it a nice bright acidity. Also at this point, if you want to grind in some black pepper, for me the pink peppercorns add a lot of that same kind of flavor profile, but if you want to skip those, you probably still want some black pepper added. So once that's added, we're going to put the lid on, and let this rest for 10 minutes. All right, our mushroom conserva is done. This smells amazing. This is literally like one of the happiest times of the year for me. Mushroom conserva time. All right, so we're going to transfer all of this over to one of these adorable jars. This one's ready to go home. Look at there. All right, so mushroom conserva, you do need to keep this refrigerated. So this is not the same thing as say, canning tomatoes or whatever. These are perishable and they'll last a lot longer if you keep them in the fridge. I love mushroom conserva cold, put it on toast just as a condiment. I love it hot, like add it to, a risotto that you're making, or even just pasta, Parmesan cheese, mushroom conserva. It's fantastic. So many uses for this. I think you're going to find it to be one of the most versatile things in your fridge, and it's so fun to make. So enjoy mushroom conserva.